Hey everybody, it's me, the Sepia Scholar, also known as V, and I'm here the day after Christmas to talk to you guys about it. And Just Like That, the new show on HBO Max. I'm going to talk to you about season 1, episode 1. Hey, it's me, and I'm here with my drink, ready to go to talk about what I just watched. But before we start that, let's talk about my love affair with Sex and the City. Sex and the City was my favorite show when I was in college. Every Sunday I would rush home to watch Sex and the City and The Sopranos to see what Charlotte, Miranda, Carrie, and Samantha were up to. They basically determined the fashion, the dating scene, made me have a love affair with New York, which I've only been to once. And so I was super excited about this reboot. So I tuned in to see the first episode, and it was a little bit shocking. So I'm going to pull up my notes to talk about what I actually thought about the show. So the show started off with them being at a cocktail party, which they're always at a cocktail party. Their favorite drinks were cosmopolitans. They were always running off to some crazy party down in Manhattan mostly, and it started off that way. They obviously acknowledged the pandemic, which was cool to see that they were keeping up with the times and everything. And they run into Bitsy Von Mufflin. I'm tearing her name up. And she wasn't there with her husband, Bobby, which the running joke was that he was gay, but she was definitely herself. The personality was the same. So it was very, very exciting to see the nostalgia of seeing Bitsy. Then they basically started talking about Samantha, and that's when it kind of went left for me. They were talking about her like she was dead, then turned around and said she was in London. I'm kind of thinking they did that because they're trying to see if they can get basically the lady that plays Samantha to come back because she has some big beef with Sarah Jessica Parker, and I guess they want to leave that open for her to come back. And then Miranda starts talking about Brady, yes, the little beautiful little redhead baby that she had in the original series, and how she stepped on his condom, which totally grossed me out, and started talking about how she let his girlfriend move in, which would have never went down in a black household. But it was real interesting to see everybody grown up and going through their lives and seeing how they change. So the first thing they talked about was Miranda's red hair or lack thereof. I thought it was really funny because to me, you can definitely see that they were all a bit older. They had been through life. Charlotte's face was actually a little bit jarring. It looks like she has a lot of Botox, a lot of stuff going on, and I really, really love Charlotte in the original series because she was so natural. She had a lovely natural body shape. She was put together. She was one of the most beautiful ones, in my opinion. So them talking about the hair color and aging really meant a lot to me because I'm getting older myself. So it was good to see how they were addressing getting older in the series. So as they're talking, they start talking about Miranda going back to school to get a master's in human rights. That was pretty interesting too because she was a cutthroat corporate lawyer. To see her go back to go do human rights was super duper different for Miranda. Yes, she dated Blair Underwood, my forever crush. So she definitely was, interested in black folks, but that the show itself didn't have that many black people in it. So for her to go back and do human rights because she saw some of the injustices for black people and with women, and to take that on, it was really, really amazing. And then they turn around and look at Carrie, who is taking pics for Instagram of some of the strange outfits that she's seeing around New York. And my experience in New York was the same thing. There was a young lady walking around with a napkin as a skirt, so I totally got what they were doing there. They take way more fashion risks than we do here in Florida, so I thought that was pretty cool. And I also thought it was cool that she was a part of a podcast. Podcasts are the new wave, so they updated her from doing her column, which she was famous for, hence the Sex and the City, and brought her up to date with Instagram and podcast. So all that was great. Then they turned around and they brought in LTW, which was Nicole Ari Parker, which her just walking on the scene, to be honest, made all the rest of them look really, really old. She looked great. I'm not going to be totally PC on here. She basically lit up the room when she walked in, but I felt like her character was really, 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 really watered down. Most of her characters that she plays in her movies are very eccentric, funny, and her herself in real life has a very, very strong sense of humor, very bright, very vibrant, and I feel like they toned her down. I mean, the guy Anthony later in the episode calls her the Black Charlotte, and I felt like that's all they did. They basically took Charlotte and turned her into a black character, and I see why they did that, because one of the complaints that they had for their original show was there weren't that many people of color, so they were trying to add color. I remember watching the movie and they added Jennifer Hudson and how they interweaved her. That was great. I really enjoyed the movie. So I was hoping they were going to do something like that here, but so far a lot of the black people on here don't have a lot of true personality. They're kind of in the background, just floating. Yes, they talk about them. Yes, they're doing. I have a black best friend throughout the show, but it isn't really gelling for me. And it's really funny to me because in the original show, they basically had trans women, which were the trans women that were downstairs, that were prostitutes down from Samantha's apartment, that she had a lot of probably super non-PC interactions with, but eventually became friends with them. Then you had the angry black woman who was the chef, who was the sister of the rapper that Samantha was dating, and she was angry that Samantha was white and her brother was black, and she was taking away the black men from the black women, and that was just super problematic and not PC. And then on top of that, I remember Carrie, when she first put out her book, the chauffeur was a stunning black woman who took her out for a hot dog. So there weren't many black people in Sex in the City, even though New York is super black, and I've been to the Bronx, that's super black and Dominican, so it was very strange that there weren't that many black people in the original series. So with all that being said, we see that Charlotte's daughter, we have Rose and we have Lily. Lily is the adopted daughter that she had when she was having fertility issues. They're all grown up, and Lily has a piano recital, and Charlotte is on everybody to go there. I love that they kept the character of Charlotte in her actual true mode. She was always uptight, high strung. She's definitely here. She always wanted everything to be perfect, and they kept true to that. So that was a really exciting part of the episode. I'm glad they didn't change that. And they also had Charlotte, being her uptight self, had begs Carrie to push her trip back with Big. And so we know Big is in this episode, and she basically wants her to push back her trip so that she can come to her recital. And she was being regular Charlotte, questioning her friendship, saying, "Can you please come?" And Carrie, as usual, bent to her whims. So I really, really appreciate it. Like I said, I appreciate that they put LTW in there and they incorporated her family, because her son was going to play in the recital too. But hers was more realistic. She had a boy. I have a boy. I know how they are. He doesn't want to play. She has to get him off the video games to play, but she feels in order to work with her mother-in-law, who apparently is an accomplished pianist herself, she has to force him to get up there and play. So those of us who have mother-in-laws understand that, trying to keep up with standards. And if you remember, Charlotte had a mother-in-law that she was never good enough for. So it's basically like they just recreated the Charlotte character with the Nicole Ari Parker character. I'm not sure how I feel about that. So let me click through these notes. Then as we move along into the and we're back. Had a little bit of trouble with the notes, so there was so much going on in this episode, so I wanted to check a couple things, so bear with me. So we'll get back into what was going on in episode 1 of season 1 of And Just Like That. So they go back to basically addressing Samantha and stating that Carrie and Samantha fell out over money. She fired her as a publicist, and basically she dropped all of them as friends. I find that super duper duper hard to believe. Samantha was very popular. Her business was thriving. Yes, she helped Carrie with her book. and was looking at helping her with all her promotions and stuff. But I don't think them falling out as about business would have caused them to stop being friends. But whatever they felt like doing to explain why she wasn't there, I guess that's okay with me. So it just wasn't within her character. I honestly think they should have killed her off with cancer. Um, I guess they're gonna keep it open for them to beg her to come back. But honestly, her character was so iconic. Definitely had a presence, and as much as the two main characters don't get along, sometimes that character has to leave. But thank God, unlike girlfriends, Jill Marie and Tracee Ellis Ross actually get along, and she could come back. She left over money, but that was not the case in this case. So, just a side note. So let's talk about Lily and Rose. So it looks like they're gonna add a lot of woke issues into this show. I don't know how I feel about that because I feel like everything doesn't need to be woke. There was a whole bunch of wokeness littered throughout this episode, and it did nothing but stress me out and kind of distract from the actual show. So it was a bit much for me, but it looks like they're going to thread in some type of sexual identity storyline with Rose. But while they were talking about her trying to get Rose into a dress, which is a big deal to Charlotte, not because Rose is a girl, but Charlotte just likes to have her family look a certain way, but that's kind of how they're pinning it. Harry comes in on skateboard, and I love Harry. He wasn't the typical man that Charlotte would have dated, but he was perfect for her, and I'm so glad to see him back. And he actually looks the same age that he was when the show came out, so kudos to him because everybody else looks incredibly different. I'm going to leave that there. So, hi, Harry. We're glad to see you. So, Carrie and Big. Carrie goes back to her apartment with Big. You can tell they're using this to show how in love they are, how happy they are. They have this beautiful apartment. I love colors. As you can see in my background, I love colors. And so does Big, and he hated the beigeness of the apartments that he had with Natasha. We'll talk about her more later. And so you can tell this apartment was done in such a way so everything's full of color and bright and wonderful, and I loved everything about it. Their love looked beautiful. They were cooking together, playing their music. So all these are homages to the old series because Big was always into not classical music, but old school music and playing his records. And they're cooking together, and he makes the joke about her keeping her sweaters in the stove. And I remember Carrie couldn't boil water. So this is all a great, great progression of their love and their relationship. And they throw the pandemic in there again, saying that they listen to an album every night during basically the lockdown. And he emphasizes that he's keeping up. Big was older than her in the original series. He looks older than her now, and he's keeping up his health by being on the Peloton or whatever, and he sings to her. So I thought that was a beautiful scene, made me really happy. So then they skip over to Miranda. Apparently Miranda, their storyline for her is that she's a drunk. She's constantly drinking. Let me take a drink to that. It's non-alcoholic though. They have her in there basically playing the Karen, woke at the wrong times. Remember, she's going back to school. She goes to a bar before she goes to class, which was, I've had classes that I wanted to take a drink before I went to it, but I held myself together because nobody wants alcohol in their breath while they're talking to a professor. She walks into this class. All these kids look way younger than her. They're looking at her strangely. Maybe, I don't know if they thought she was a professor or they were trying to figure out what was going on. Then she tries to sit down. Somebody says that's a seat for the professor. And she gets up, and then the actual professor walks in, which is a beautiful lady. I guess on the show her name is Nia Wallace. And Samantha mistakes her for a student, and then the misunderstandings begin. Everybody was so sensitive in the room. I probably would have been uncomfortable too. They probably would have called me all types of ageist and all types of crazy stuff because the one kid makes a big deal about her using the wrong pronouns. So she goes into this woke ramble. I'm going to use woke a lot in here because they do too in this episode. It's getting on my nerves. she basically confuses the professor for a student. Then she's scared that she's offended the professor because she has braids. I have braids, and as a black woman, we change our hair like underwear, and I love that we get to be a new person every day. And so it's a little confusion about whether the professor is her, and she's thinking they think she's a racist, and she doesn't think she's a professor because she's black, and she's like, no, it's because of her hair. And as I'm rambling, she's rambling, trying to prove that she's not a racist or an ageist or any other is that we've thrown out here in this society. So that was crazy and didn't make any sense to me. They could have kept all of that. Then they switch over to Carrie's podcast, which they say is about gender roles, and it's supposed to be in consent. And funny joke, my son always talks about consent. They talk about that at school a lot. So I appreciate that they're teaching kids about consent, but they seem to be beating us over the head with this. I'm over it. I'm gonna keep going with the show, but they're doing too much for me. So they're sitting there talking, and there's the main. You could tell they're introducing this character, Che. She is genderless, binary, non-binary, whatever you want to call it. And they start talking about sexual conversations. Their main topic is masturbation. And Carrie is uncomfortable. They're asking her all these crazy questions. We're more open nowadays than she would have been in her days. It was really sassy and adventurous of her to even have a sex column. And now we let it all hang out. So I would have probably been uncomfortable too if they would ask me what I do with myself in the dark. So that part was actually pretty funny, and I felt uncomfortable for her. So that was a good scene. Then they click over to Naya talking to her husband about IVF. So they're going to talk about fertility. So it seems like all these black characters are going through something, taking parts of Charlotte's old storyline and just giving them the black characters. It's crazy. I don't know. But I really like the professor. And Miranda once again sees her at the subway, rambles about wokeness, tries to prove she's not a horrible white woman, makes everything all awkward. And the professor gets on the subway, and Miranda gets subway, and they all go their separate ways. So yet another Karen / I'm woke, I'm going to prove it to you moment. I don't know how I feel about this. Then they go back to Che, and she tells Carrie that she needs to open up. Che pulls off her vape. I mean, Che is just all out there. She's rough, but she's cool. And it was hilarious to me because Che tells Carrie to step her pussy up, and I was just like, people love to use that saying. We talk about gender all the time, not putting it together, but you're gonna tell a woman to step her pussy up. The gay culture is all throughout. I just thought that part was actually hilarious to me. So kudos to them. I actually got a laugh out of that one. So basically, she's telling her to step her game up, or she's going to get let go from the podcast. And so Carrie takes that home. She starts. We actually get to see her on her famous computer writing her notes. I missed the voiceover. It really made the show flow. Even the way I'm speaking to it now, the show is all over the place, and it's driving me nuts. So I missed the narration part of Carrie telling what was going on. So I don't know if they're going to bring that back, but that would have been perfect. But she goes home, and she basically starts flirting with Big and asks him to masturbate in front of her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here for this. Save me, remove me. But then I thought about it. I was like, heck, when I'm older in that age, I'm probably going to want to I'm still going to be popping too. So I was like, okay, show that older people they still like to be sexual, and they like to have fun too. So I was here for all of that. And then, but they also use that as somebody who writes herself. They use that to kind of allude to the fact that he has heart problems, because she was like, oh, I thought you were going to grab your nitro pill when he was, about to start doing his thing. But I thought that was a really cute scene. And there was another foreshadowing is she goes puts on her wedding shoes to go to this piano recital. And while she's putting on the wedding shoes, it was funny to me because he's saying, I'm about to go ride my bike, but he's smoking this big ass cigar, which is very big of him. And she calls him John, and he's like, I'm just looking at you. You're so beautiful. He's admiring her. I'm like, here comes the bullshit. They about to do something. I'm like, please don't do this. So they pop back to Charlotte. She's arguing with Rose over the dress. Rose goes and does her own funky style with it. Of course, Carrie's going to love it because Carrie is a fashion icon, and she takes risks. And sometimes, most of the time in the old show, it was a hit. So a lot of times on this, I've been seeing some misses. Look at a mess. So, when Rose gets over to the piano recital with the foolishness she has on, Anthony, who I love because he says what I would probably say if I was in the room, calls her out and is like, "What is this foolishness?" And that would probably have been the same thing I would have said. But everybody has to be able to express themselves, love what you wear, be happy in it. So, but I just thought it was hilarious that he said something. We finally see my boo Steve, the bartender. And, he definitely looks like somebody old ass granddaddy. Sorry, y'all. And he's going deaf, but I still love him. It's something about his spirit. That's why, spoiler alert, in the Sex and the City movie, the guy I was with, we were so caught up into Sex and the City. He was my boyfriend at the time in college. When Steve cheated on Miranda, we felt like we got cheated on. We quickly wanted him her to forgive him. I mean, we just love Steve, so it was real good to see him. And they put his hearing loss in there as a running joke, and it really, really pushed the show along. It was funny to me. And then Stanford appears, dressed to the nines, with his loud colors, and he's arguing with Anthony. I thought it was weird that they got married in the first place, but apparently their marriage is a mess and they love to argue. And we all know that couple. I've been in one of them. That all they do is argue. They love each other to death, but when they show up, something's about to pop off. It's toxicity at its best. So, but it was cool to see those two characters together. And then they threw in the gender thing again by showing Miranda using the men's bathroom. And Miranda was off the chain. She's pulling wine out of her purse during the children's recital. And everybody wants to take a swig. And then here comes LTW and her mother-in-law. And Anthony said what I wanted to say. LTW is nothing but a black Charlotte. I don't know what else to say. It's getting on my nerves down to the dry ass wig. I'm sorry, y'all. I can't hold it back anymore. It was just stressing me out. I love you, Nicole. I love you, but I don't like it. Her husband was there. He was cool. He's a dude from Hamilton. I was really happy to see him in the series. I love him in everything that he does. And he was asking for a drink, too, because guess what? LTW's son is terrible at piano, just like they thought. And that's what happens when you force kids to do something they don't want to do. I did like that they showed that flaw in them, that they weren't completely perfect. And so that really, really, really at least gave the black characters of the show, I hate calling them black characters, but that's how they're setting them up, a little bit more depth, made them a little bit more relatable. And then once again, Brady and his little hot-ass girlfriend were making out in the concert. I'm so tired of this little boy, seeing him make out. I don't want to see that. I want to see grown people smashing. I don't want to see Brady. I don't know. I'm just over it. As everybody knows, Lily was amazing at the piano. She's playing. They're showing big on the Peloton, getting his exercise on, texting Carrie, I love you. I'm like, here comes the bullshit. I said, here it comes, it's about to come. And I didn't know what was about to happen was going to happen, but they kept foreshadowing it. So I was just like, no. So he collapsed. He's working out. Then he gets off the bike. He collapsed on his way into the shower. They're popping back and forth to Stanford saying he's going to stay at Carrie's old apartment, which means they allowed her to keep her apartment. And that Stanford and Anthony's relationship is so bad that he can go to the apartment. So that we know they're going to continue with that. Carrie hurries home, and she finds Big down on the ground holding his arm, obviously having a heart attack. And she doesn't do the Heimlich. She don't do CPR. She don't try to breathe, resuscitate, nothing. She just sit there crying and letting the water fall down. I'm like, lady, help the man. You've been on the cell phone all day, and you don't know how to dial 911? So she just hold her in his arm, the water coming down, the wedding shoes done came off, and then Big died. Lord, he died, y'all. He died. And you want to know what I honestly thought in my mind? This lady chased this man down, begged him to be with her, was a side chick, been through all his trouble, tried to force him to commit. He had a heart attack or something happened before in the original series when she finally get him in the house cooking salmon and all that good stuff. Boom, he's gone. If it was me, I would have been there trying to resuscitate his ass. I'd have been doing all types of, I would have been having a seance. Your ass ain't dying after I did all that work to get you. I okay, I'm supposed to be sad, y'all, but I was just very upset. And just like that, that was the episode. That was episode 1. Hopefully, you guys enjoy this review. Come back for more. I'm definitely going to do the remainder of the episodes. Just be patient with me. It's the holidays. Got some days off, and I'm excited to spend them with you all. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a happy Kwanzaa, and I love y'all.